Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the Sales Career Podcast. Today I'm speaking to Elric Legloire. I think I totally messed that up, so you will have a chance to pronounce your name again. Welcome, Elric.
Thanks, Tyrone. And no, you pronounce it correctly. So thank you for doing
Wow.
it.
Yay, I practiced a bit in front of the mirror this morning. So, Eric, before we get started, same question as everyone. If you could time travel, please tell us what you would have told yourself when you were younger.
Okay, so for this question, I think I have three different answers. So if I think about my career perspective, my sales career, uh, I think it's all about that maybe I need to move to a company. If I start at a company that have a sales training in place, or they have a good reputation on training salespeople, so SDRAs in general. Because for me, I think that's something maybe that could help me to go quicker within this company and then other companies. So that's number one. Then because I was going to talk about that later, but I've been in SDR for 3-4 years. And I think the thing for that is I wish that I knew that earlier, but to learn about the ICP and the buyer personas, not after 2 years of doing the job, but really at the beginning. And then the last one is as a manager. I think something I didn't do quick enough. It's looking for mentors because I think you have a lot of good resources for SDRs online or for prospecting or for AEs, but for leadership, you have resources, but I think it's hard to find really good resources. And the best resource I found is finding mentors.
Yeah, these are three very relevant points, I would say, and I wrote them down so we can cover them later along the way. So before we do a deep dive on that, please introduce yourself so that everyone knows who you are.
Yeah, sure. So, like you introduced me already, so I'm Elric. I'm an SDR leader. I've been an SDR leader for 2 years. Before that, I was an SDR for 4 years. Recently, I worked at Chili Piper. I started there as an SDR, then moved inside the company. I got promoted 4 times to team lead, senior team lead, manager for the mid-market segment, and then manager for the enterprise segment. And on top of that, I also run a community for SDRs, and it's called SDR Game. And I'm running a podcast and a newsletter for SDRs and SDR leaders.
Awesome. This sounds like you're really into like the whole SDR community. And I think everyone that is out there on LinkedIn also has one or the other way seen your profile pop up here and there. So I think we'll talk a bit about how you got to where you are today and why you're doing all these things. But let's cover your early career first.
Yep.
Can you share with us how you started into sales and maybe what you did before even starting in sales?
Sure. So before sales, I didn't know I wanted to go in sales. So I got a master's degree. I was studying in Paris, and I was traveling abroad. And then I met my girlfriend. At that time, it was my girlfriend. Now it's my wife. But when I was doing an internship in Mexico, and so I moved back to Mexico in 2016. To be with her, and so I found a job. So I did a job. I found a job as a marketing coordinator for a small business in Mexico. But the owner hired me to basically do lead generation, find meetings for the sales team. I was trying doing content, producing content for the company, doing the design of the website, working on some campaigns for the company. But it was a small business, and what I learned at school from studying, you had like a budget of 1 million euros to do a campaign. And when I joined the company, I say, "Yeah, we don't have any budget to do that, so go figure out." And so what I learned there is I started to research online to do how to do marketing actually. And I learned a lot. At some point, I found the book Predictable Revenue, the book written by Aaron Ross. And I say, hey, I think that's something I should try, because prospecting, if you think about it, in the book they are talking about at Salesforce, how they were doing prospecting at the beginning of the company. And if you think about resources, I say money or time, I think prospecting could be a good one because we didn't have any budget to do any campaigns, so I started to prospect, and that's how I started in sales actually.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome to come from a like marketing background and then learning, hey, I think only like doing some content that we can't spend any ad money on or something like that will not do the job. I will get my hands dirty now and start some prospecting. How did that look like when you started prospecting? You didn't know anything besides what this book maybe told you, and predictable revenue is, I wouldn't say old, but it's like it doesn't have all these fancy new things that we have today. So how did you start off?
Yeah, so the good thing about the book, it was in 2017, and I think in Mexico City, in Mexico and Mexico City in general, the startup scene was not that big yet, so you didn't have like a lot of SDRs yet, and so basically a lot of companies didn't know about the method of the book. So I think it was working really well, and that's why I started to fall in love with prospecting because of that, because I was just trying what I was obviously if I was translating it from English to Spanish to prospect there, and it was working. So I started to continue on this actually.
Mm-hmm. And did you have any sort of KPIs or something that you had to report on? Because I guess they didn't know about all these like funnel metrics and everything back then.
No, not just meetings booked. That's the only thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking with the founder of the company.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it. And then when looking at like your marketing background, I also saw that you work for an event management company. Do you think that somehow influenced the way you started prospecting? So you didn't hit like the ground running in terms of I would get coached on cold calling now, but you had a much more like, let's say, thought through experience before you went into sales,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean. Do you think that influenced the way you approach it today or back then?
Yes, and for me, it's more about trying to understand what the person was hiring me for, to trying to find the best way to do it. And sometimes you can think it's they say, "Hey, we need to have a marketing person." But the reality with my experience now, I could do if I'm thinking about doing this first job again, I think I will do that differently. I won't prospect. I will prospect, but also do marketing like I'm doing with my podcast, my newsletter, but in different ways because now I have more knowledge about that. But I knew I wanted to get meetings, and I knew that prospecting will be the fastest way for me to help them with that. So that's why I started to do that. Now my marketing background also helped me to understand not just hey as an SDR or an SDR leader. Just hey, my goal is to build pipeline. No, it's hey, because I already have marketing background, I already understand. I don't have the experience of a demand generation director, obviously, but I understand their concern, and I'm more as a leader working with them on a day-to-day basis, right? On a daily basis.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, and then after you figured out like, okay, it's not actually marketing that I want to do, but it's prospecting and it's sales. Was there like a point where you said, goodbye marketing, I will never come back. I'm a sales guy now. Or how was this transition from that department to the other one somehow?
And actually, with the podcast and newsletter, for me, I'm not saying goodbye to marketing. So that's for me the way to still do marketing as a salesperson. So I don't think I will be a marketer at some point, but I really enjoy doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then from your like professional career development, I would say, what was the next big thing that you hit then? Was it right away as SDR position, or what did you do after you had this marketing role?
So officially, I was still a marketing person at that company, but off the record, I was how do you say it? I was an SDR for the company, but didn't have any KPIs like we said earlier. And then that's when I made the decision to move to another company to be an SDR officially.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see. And then when I look at your LinkedIn profile right now, I see that you have been with a company in Mexico before, or like 2 or 3
Yes.
companies in Mexico, and then you started working for Chili Piper, right? Was it also from there, or did you move locally when you joined that company?
So I was still working at Chili Pepper when I'm sorry, I was still in Mexico when I was working at Chili Pepper when I joined them. So I was working on the North American market for Chili Pepper, and then during 2021, in July 2021, we moved to France.
Okay, I see. But that wasn't work related, right? That was like because
No,
of
oh yeah,
personal.
no, yeah, personal,
Okay.
personal decision. Uh, it was good because at Shibaba you can. It's a remote company, so you can work from Europe or from the US. So I was managing the EME team actually for the mid market segment, but then when I moved to the enterprise team, it was the global team. So here I was working with the US and. The company is an American company, so we always have meetings with the US team, but the enterprise team was more focus, no, US based focus. So
Yeah, I got it. And then from the perspective of working remotely, right? I also did it, but actually I never moved somewhere because I was working remote, but it was all home office. I never moved somewhere. But Chili Piper is a company I know that they like really opened up the gates and said you can work from everywhere, you can do whatever you want to do, unless yeah, I don't know what the rules were, right? Can you share a bit how Chili Piper made that work for everyone working globally?
yeah, I think the only thing with that is the customer facing roles like SDR, AEs, or customer success or account manager. Those roles they need to be on the same time zone on the market you're working with. Because if you are an SDR working on the North American market, it's um, from a personal perspective, it's better for your mental health to work in Americas. You can be based in the US if you want, but you can be based in South America because it's same time zone. But for those who are in Europe working on the North American market, it will be tough. But I know at Chiba we have roles like we had like roles like marketing or the engineering team. They can be based wherever they want because they don't need to be on calls during their days. So.
Mhm. And I don't you have been in a like sort of customer facing role at that time, so I guess you were not like somewhere around the time zones. But do you know how your colleagues actually structured their day when they were working? Maybe I don't know. Let's say it was like normal day hours from their time, but it was for the I would say core team. If they had something like that, it was night. So I imagine something like handing in something on deadlines and reiterating on them would take longer than for a company that only works in one time zone. How did you experience that?
On my side, I didn't see that much, but I know the product team, for example, I know some people on the team, they were traveling at the same time that they were working, but they were still, even though they were in Europe, they were working on the US time zone.
Hmm.
So they were starting their day at like 2, 3 p.m. Paris time, and then finishing their day at 10 p.m. Paris
Hmm.
time.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Because I always imagine when I would be working for, actually, I am working for an American company, but if I would be working on their local time zone, then it would be like working a night shift or something. Sometimes I think that would be pretty cool because I would be working a night shift and then having the day off. But I think, as you said, like mental health wise, this wouldn't be a good decision. Anyhow, looking at your career again, you said that you've been an SDR for several years and then moved into SDR or BDR leadership, right? When did you make that decision that you want to pursue a leadership role and not, for example,
Yeah.
going the AE route?
Yep. So for me, unfortunately, that's why I was saying also in my career, um, uh, if I thinking about my career again, starting again, working to a company with, I would say, yeah, a really good culture around training and coaching, I think will make a big difference. So, but because of that, where I'm today. It's because of that. Obviously, the decision I made. I'm really happy with all the decisions I made. And because, for example, on my career, I didn't have like good coaches or good managers until I would say the company before Chili Piper. That's why I made the decision to move to leadership, because I think in general, SDR, they are lacking of good training and coaching. And so because of that, I made the decision to move to leadership. And so I want to, when I work with SDRs, it's to help them to get the coaching and training I didn't have, basically. And that's why I'm doing that. And that's why also I'm doing the podcast and newsletter, because in certain way, it's not coaching, but it's really like the way that if some people don't have like a coach or a good manager, they can still use the resources you are sharing or I'm sharing, for example, and to help them with their career or their career.
Mm-hmm. And how does that look like from someone that is working on your team when they get coached and trained by you? What do you focus on, and where do you start with them? Let's say I would join your company as a new SDR. Where would you focus on first?
Always trying to improve that. So right now, I think I'm way better than when I started, obviously, as a leader. But right now, the first conversation generally is focused on the personal side of the person. So trying to understand the motivation outside of work. So are they engaged, or they want to get married next year? Do they want to buy a house? Do not they have a baby next year? Try to see if they are working on a specific goal that we can help them on, because yes, being an SDR, it's tough. And when we have a specific goal outside of work, I think it's easier to motivate your team, because if you work remotely or so, but I think I don't remember if when we were talking if you work in an office. Actually, I don't
No.
think not yet. Okay, so for me, I worked at both, so a remote companies, but also I work into an office. I don't need to be in an office to be motivated to work. And I know some people they want to do that. So, but remotely it's not the same. You can't do that. So I think right now there is some software we can help with that. But when you are in front of your computer, you just have Slack, or you have we are talking right now through video, but that's the only the conversation you have during the day. So you can't just focus on being at the office to be motivated to do a job. So for me, it's all about trying to understand their motivation outside of work, and that's how I'm starting to work with my teams.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty cool starting point, not hearing them first out like, hey, how's your code call skills right now? When do you want to be AE or something? But focusing on their personal life first, and then try to weave that in with the professional goals. I actually had a leader once that told me that I should work with my team in terms of finding out what they want to like buy or achieve next. Best case would be something that they would want to buy. And I know one guy on my team wanted to buy a new motorbike, and then it was like, okay, how much would he sell his old motorbike for? What's the difference to the new one? And then divide that by meetings booked, and then actually telling him, hey, your motorbike, you're working on your motorbike every day, and like every meeting pays onto your motorbike. I think that's a really cool approach. It sounds like you have done the same, right?
And that's exactly that. So if you think, and I think that's a really good way to think about that this way, because it's not, hey, you need to book another meeting. No, it's if you don't book this other meeting, it's going to going to have a delay to buy what you want. So it's easier to motivate them with this.
Yeah, I see. And then when you start working on, like, let's say, professional skills, what would be something for a new joiner on your team that you would focus on then after you found out about their personal goals and you somehow matched that with like working goals? Would you start, I don't know, role playing with them? Would you start looking at ICP? What's the first go-to point then?
Okay, so recently I started to, and I was still doing that in my process. So right now I'm still working. It's still a work in progress, but I'm working on the how do you say that? A scorecard for skills actually, and so during the interviews, we are assessing people. We were assessing people, and so we already have an idea on where they are really good or they are struggling. And for me, for example, you can, if I know the person during the role plays, during the interview, they were really good, I know this person is going to be really good on the phone. So for me, and that's something we were, I was mentioning first, I'm focusing on the person, but then for me, I'm not focusing on, hey, I have we have a process here, and then you should apply your process. No, for me, it's more around you, Tyrone, you are good on the phone. Okay, so let's work on the phone and around your strengths. Because for me, I'm thinking about if I'm trying to help you be really good on cold emails when you're really good on the phone, I think it's going to be way harder to get you um, a player on writing emails. Where if, for example, on the phone you're already a B player, to be an A player, it will be easier for us to work together to be an A player. But if you are a E player, for example, on writing emails, it's going to take us months or years to get you to an A player. So I'm thinking about that this way, and generally when we're talking to other teams, they were wondering what we are doing, but we are just focusing on the strengths on each person on the team.
Okay, so that you don't have like one size fits all approach where you have like a standard cadence and everyone needs to go through the same steps, but actually you tell them, hey, let's focus on what you can do, and through that channel you will generate your meetings.
Yeah, exactly. Because and why I was doing this, because the enterprise team was a bit different, I think, because it's they are not junior SDRs on the team, so here it's more. I can be more flexible on this. But if I was working with brand new SDRs, I think the process will be different, because we need to teach them how to prospect. Obviously, at the beginning, we have a standard process, and then based on that, we will see what we're focusing on. But because they are senior SDRs already, and so that's why we give them more I give them more the freedom on what they need to focus on.
Yeah, okay, I see. And then when we look at your experience from working on North American accounts, then globally, you've been in Europe before in Paris. What do you see as like some global differences, I would say, that an SDR would have to figure out when they work on global enterprise accounts? Let's say they would be prospecting someone in Germany and they would be prospecting someone in North America. Would you tell them to take different approaches?
Well, actually, if we are thinking about just the enterprise team and a German account, would avoid the German accounts, because on the team we did, why I'm saying that is because on the team we didn't have anyone speaking German, and I know German is a tough market if you only speak German. So that's
makes
the first
sense.
thing. That's why. For the enterprise team, the market was really big. We only had like 4 people, and the US market was the main market. But if you think about the differences in prospecting, I think if you think about the US and Canada, for example, obviously there is some differences between West Coast and East Coast, but I don't see a big difference like with Europe. So prospecting a US company, I think it's tougher to get meetings. But when people say yes to meeting, they're more committed to move forward with the project. And in Europe, it's easier to get meetings. I think in general, I'm not saying with a specific country, but in general, it's easier. But then to move forward and get a close one, I think it's harder, because for example, if we think about a specific country like France, people, they love to think about things, and so yes, they take meetings, but then generally nothing is going to happen. So I think it's the main difference with prospecting between those two regions.
Yeah. It's like the same in Germany, I would say. It's like quite easy to get people involved in conversations and spark their interest, and they would love to talk to you in the first moment, but then after that they are very resistant to change, right? Like risk averse. They buy one tool, then they stick with it for 5 years because they're afraid to change it, even though there are way better solutions out there. So I can see where that is coming from. How do you see that when you look at the candidates then that you interview? Would you sort of differentiate between who you want to hire for a North American market, than especially for Europe, for example, if you would have to divide them?
So I didn't think about that actually at Chili Pepper, because on the team we had 2 American working on the team, and 1 English person, and then a French person. And we didn't think about that actually. So, but obviously it's, if I'm hiring people they already have experience, it's easier to get someone who already have experience on the local market. That's the first thing. But then the second thing, even though, for example, people on the team, the English guy and the French person on my team, they were still prospecting in the US, and they were still getting meetings, and they were good meetings. So, but here it's because they already had experience. So I don't know. That's a good question. So
yeah, it's maybe something to take with you then for
yeah.
the next time you encounter it. Okay, then almost coming to an end already. I have 2 questions left for you. First of all, could you, because I think it's pretty rare that someone has like 4 promotions within the SDR space in one company, even though it's like a fast growing company and stuff needs to get done. But can you summarize a bit how you progressed from day 1 starting off at Chili Piper to then being the global SDR leader?
Yeah. So something we didn't mention, I was an SDR manager before joining Chili Pepper. So for some people, it's like a step back. So for me, it was being back also on the floor, and I think it helped me also to be in my leadership position after that at Chili Pepper. But it was 8 months as an SDR. Really enjoy this time, because it was learning about revenue personnel, so VP of sales, CMOs, and all around operations, so revenue operations, sales operation. And then so I was focusing on North America, and it was a really good learning, because I really enjoy the working on the North American market. And then I started to grow the EMEA team as a team lead, and then moved to management, to manager, full-time manager. And I really enjoyed that also, because the team grew fast. We were 3 when I joined the EMEA team, and then we were 11 when I moved to the enterprise team. And the mid-market team was really the biggest segment at Chili Pepper. And then when I joined the enterprise team, it was really a big change, because I was the first manager to join the enterprise team, because we had enterprises just before that, but that was the first time we had leadership to manage the team. And it was really interesting, because it was taking over a team with no processes and no processes or track record of performance. And that was really a big challenge for me, this one, because I was out of my comfort zone, but I think it was a really good one.
Yeah, and speaking of going out of your comfort zone, you just said that you came from like a SDR manager role to being on the front line again. Did that somehow change the way you approached your role then? Did you have like more understanding for your manager then, or what changed when you came from like SDR to manager to then SDR again?
What I mentioned earlier also, learning about the ICP and buyer personas. So I already knew that. So when I joined Chili Pepper, I was really focusing on listening, watching demos, listening all the case studies, taking notes around what metrics the customer are talking about. And for me, it helped me really, really well, because I could. It was easier for me to talk to prospects, because I already understand the pains we can solve. And I think it's, if you think about being good as an SDR, I think it's what makes the difference with SDRs. And I think it helped me grow, to be, because actually we didn't talk about performance, but I was number 1 in pipeline creation for the North American market. So And I think because I knew really well the person of the trainings we are doing, and then when I was managing the team also, that's internally, so for me, it's always
I
a
see
topic
that
for
as a very important point as well. Then let's take one step back, and you said in the beginning of the episode that you see companies lacking management training, or like they are not training their managers on how to be managers. Actually, what would you wish that companies do more of to have their managers be ready for their job?
Wow.
It's a wish list here.
Yeah, it's a wish. No, it's a wish list, but I think, and that's something I'm learning from Kevin Dorsey. Actually, I don't. Are you familiar with Katie?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So Katie, he moved to Winning by Design recently to help managers to be trained and good coaches. And I think I'm really aligned with that, because I think if you want to have really good SDRs, it starts with the managers. And so my wish list is, if all the new SDRs managers are SDR managers that can get training from their leadership team, could be perfect. At Shipper, we had a really, that was the first company where it was my second company as a manager, but we get trainings as managers, and I know that's not the case for every company.
Mm-hmm. So they actually invested in training their managers and helping them become better in their role. And
exactly.
Okay. Can you give an example, like on a last note, what would training for a manager look like if they, for example, their focus would be onboarding new members to the team, for example, for the whole company?
Yeah. If you think about the way generally people get promoted as a manager is, oh, you are the top performer and now you're a manager in January. Oh, nice. Okay, so go figure out. And generally, what they will do is will start to try to replicate what they are doing with the team. That's fine. That could work in the short term, but the thing with that is that no one is here to train you on, like you mentioned, how to onboard someone, how to run a proper one-on-one, how to coach someone, and those trainings they were here for that for us. It was more focused on the management perspective, not onboarding or hiring, for example, but it was more, hey, you should have at least a bi-weekly one-on-one with your team. Hey, in those one-on-ones, you should structure your one-on-ones this way. And I think it was more giving us like an ideal process you can run with your team. Because when I'd been promoted as a manager, I didn't get those type of resources at TalkPush before Chili Pepper, but then also at Chili Pepper. But then when we were moving, I think it was December last year, the talent team, they started to hire people that were really investing in manager trainings. And so that's why we were starting to get training for managers.
Yeah. I think that is something, as you mentioned, that is something that every company should do, because knowing it from my own experience, you get promoted to lead a team, and then it's like, okay, how do I actually do this? Yeah, you have no clue, and it's like one of the worst feelings, because you are also responsible for them, right? For their performance, for their personal goals. It's
And you know what? You have training for managers, but you don't have trainings for directors, and you don't have trainings for VPs also. So it's the more you are promoted, I would say, in leadership, and the less resources you will get. So.
Okay, yeah, interesting perspective. Actually, then comes the day where you should be earning that much money that you need a one-on-one coach or something outside of your company, I would guess. But yeah, that's a whole nother topic then. Cool, Eric, we are at the end of this podcast. For everyone listening, if you heard Eric speak and you think he could be a great addition to your team, actually, he's on the job hunt right now, and we will record another episode of Why Should We Hire You right after this. So take that link, forward that to anyone that is hiring SDR leaders, and then we can get Eric a job really quick. Eric, anything else you want to place here?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me today. And if you are an SDR or an SDR leader, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, or listen to my podcast, SDR Game, or subscribe to my newsletter, SDR Game.
Awesome. I will put some links in the show notes so everyone can find you. And then we will hear us on the next episode.